We are so cooked. It's hardly news. It's just over. Pack it up, folks. It was good while it lasted. Actually, scratch that. It was never good. Just more affordable. I'm fully convinced that pretty much all of existence was a mistake. Why bother with subatomic particles and laws of physics and all that stuff if this is the ultimate result? Now, how did I come to this conclusion? What extinguished the final bit of spark from my eye sockets? The last spring in my bony stride. Well, it was a little movie called Disclosure Day. Hey everybody, it's your boy Ralph, back again with another video. Yeah, this one's gonna get a bit dark. You know, I'm gonna strongly suggest you put on some black attire for this one. You know, maybe break out a bit of eyeliner, some black lipstick, cause I'm going full emo on this thing. Maybe by the end I'll come up with something a bit sunnier. You know, try to stay true to my sunny disposition, but I ain't there yet. So, Disclosure Day. Steven Spielberg's latest sci-fi alien flick. You know, what's the deal with this thing exactly? Well, first, let me just say that as a movie, I didn't hate it. It was okay. Not exactly good. I'll even throw a number on it, right? 2.25 stars. So why did watching this particular movie make me wish the entire universe had an off switch? Now, answering that question's gonna make for a bit of a different kind of video. I am hesitant to call it a video essay. I don't know, maybe something between a video essay and a generalized rant. So I guess I'm gonna just start with a quick plot summary of the movie itself, do a bit of level setting, and I'm going full spoilers with this one, so here's your warning. We good? Okay. I tell you what, let's do some dramatic titles. So we start off with this guy, Danny, and he's hanging out at a wrestling match. And he's being strong-armed by this shadowy group of characters. Although technically the movie starts off with the audience, you know, us viewers, getting pummeled by the wrestler in first person. It's a very strange choice, but I feel like it kind of foreshadows the mood that this movie ultimately put me in. So this guy Danny, he's got a backpack full of weird goodies that these guys want real bad. And they're holding his girlfriend hostage to exchange for this stuff. They're about to do the exchange when our boy Danny pulls the Uno reverse card. This little crystal. And everyone's terrified of it, so he does manage to escape with both his old lady and his backpack of curiosities. We then meet Margaret, a local weather lady from Kansas City, and she lives in a pretty sweet loft with their goofy musician boyfriend. And in this apartment, Margaret decides to get into a staring contest with this little birdie. And the birdie does something to her brains. She immediately starts speaking in fluent Russian for reasons unknown. So that's pretty weird. And that's just a hint of the powers she gets. She's got full psychic capabilities now. You know, when she takes a look at a person, she can catch their entire vibe and life story, and get a look into all their interpersonal situations. And on top of that, she can give them the ultimate interpersonal advice. She's like a superpowered Dear Abby. You know, that is definitely an ancient reference, but that's how I saw it. She finally gets to work, starts trying to deliver the weather forecast, and yeah, she freezes up and starts talking alien gibberish. The video of this gets back to that shadowy group, who's headed by this guy Noah. So they pretty much immediately start chasing after her as well. Danny and his old lady holed up in a safe house, and he tells her the plot of the movie. This shadowy group had a job in mind. Their whole point was to keep all evidence and keepsakes of alien encounters all to their greedy little corporate hands. And Danny stole a bunch of it, and he's seeking to, disclose it to the general public. So, some hundreds of miles away, you got Margaret over here. And she's basically omniscient at this point. So she knows instinctively she's got to get in touch with Danny. But by the time she meets him, he's already been captured. But she breaks him out using her super empathy powers. And then they both meet Danny's boss, Hugo, the head of the resistance or whatever. And Hugo has made a full-size replica of Margaret's childhood home to help her recover some memories. That's a pretty high-effort undertaking. I think they should have gone with VR or something like that. Should have just built something in Blender. But whatever. Either way, the thing does work, and both Margaret and Danny remember that they were abducted by aliens at about 10 years old. And the aliens waved a bunch of crystals over their heads and, gave them whatever powers. So, the mission is on, and Margaret and Danny and the whole crew of resistance fighters or whatever go to Margaret's little TV station, where she hijacks the station to show the videos that Danny had taken from his work. And the whole world is just spellbound by this, Then they wheel out this old alien, and he whispers to Margaret the sentence of ultimate truth. Margaret goes on camera, and just as she's about to tell the entire world the whole point of this, the movie stops and the credits roll. Honestly, I think it was a smart move to stop the movie there, It was already pushing its luck. Now, as I said before, I don't think this is a terrible movie or anything, but it's ultimately just kind of pointless and loud and sloppy. A lot of running around and some pretty dodgy special effects. But the weird thing was, the entire time I'm watching this, I get this creeping sense of cosmic dread. It just keeps bringing everything up in the front of my mind. Normally when I sit back and watch a movie, I'm taking a break from the every day-to-day realities. But this one just kept reminding me of it, So let's get into it. So this first one is definitely a bit personal and has to do with just getting a bit older. Spielberg has been a fixture in my life and the life of a lot of people my age and even younger for decades. And not everything he's made has been perfect, but there's always been this kind of core competence. And what's crazy is the last two movies he made were West Side Story and The Fabelmans. And both of those were really well done movies. Considering he's like 150 at this point. But Disclosure Day is kind of like his megalopolis. Watching such a reliably great filmmaker slip into this particular brand of mediocrity is kind of a bummer. So part one actually has a part two. Very shortly after this movie began, I couldn't help but focus on Emily Blunt's face. Yeah, she went and did it. Medical or surgical, she kind of froze her face a little bit. Now listen, I'm not having a go at Emily Blunt. There are a lot of systems in play that result in this. Younger and younger actresses are doing this stuff to themselves. It's societal pressure, it's industry pressure. I don't know, man. But it just stood out because, Margaret's a very emotional character. And now Emily has one facial expression to use for all these different emotional variations. I don't want to hop on this because, as I said, I ain't going after Emily. But it's just a bummer to see. So, I guess while we're on the topic of, trendy internet stuff, this movie does have Nepo babies in it, So Margaret and Danny have a lot in common, and one of them is that they are attracted to Nepo babies. Yep, this young lady is Bono's daughter. And this fellow over here, he's Kurt Russell's son. You know, and in this case, I don't think either of them bring anything truly special to the pot. You know, I said in another video that the world's got way bigger problems for me to be too concerned about Nepo babies. But it is representative of something bigger, you know, and my mind went there. It just feels like doors are closed for the next generation. If it's not Nepo babies, it's AI taking away entry-level jobs. And all this generational and institutional wealth makes it harder and harder to do simple things, like buy houses, in college educations. You know, it's hard not to go there. It's like people of my generation and the one right before me, the boomers. You know, it's like we're rolling up the carpet for the young folks. And it kind of makes me a little bit sick in my stomach, even though technically I do not have one. Have we been having an actor shortage here in the USA? You know, let's take a look at the cast over here. This movie takes place in America and features American characters. Alright, so here's the list. American character, British actor. Another American character, this time it's an Irish actor. This guy is a British character with the British actor, but honestly I bet the character wasn't written as British, you know? It's just they got Colin Firth and they're like, yeah, just do your Colin Firth thing. Now this one down here, American character, Irish actor, and finally, American character, and, yep, an American actor. And honestly, Coleman Domingo is my favorite thing in this movie, and he might be one of my favorite things in the world. He's awesome. You know, once you notice this, it's like Nepo babies. It's everywhere you look. You know, I like watching behind-the-scenes stuff, and you're like, oh, I didn't know she was Australian. It's crazy. And you wonder, why is this? Now, don't get me wrong. This is not a xenophobia thing. I got place in my ribcage for all the peoples of the world. It kind of tells me, are performing arts dead in the US? You know, are we too stupid and boring and distracted, and shall I say, moronic, that we completely lost interest in learning the various crafts? You know, boring suburbanite parents, are they crushing the dreams of their artistically gifted kids and telling them, no, you gotta get a business degree or whatever? I don't know, man. Just kind of a bummer, right? Anyhow. I'll try to make this one quick, but Disclosure Day lost money. A lot of movies are flopping. You know, part of it is the movie prices, right? You know, my local cinema finally started putting up big scary signs saying no outside food. Now, I pay no attention to those signs, but they really want you to spend $50 a person to go see a movie. And who's got the kind of money to do that regularly? You know, a movie used to be an afterthought, not something you planned for. Now, I don't weep for these places going out of business, but I do kind of weep for what humanity is losing in the bargain. You know, we're a social species. Our brains are wired to find solace in satisfaction in the company of others. You know, even strangers in a dark theater. And it isn't just movies. It's restaurants and bars and concerts. You know, greed is pricing us out of essential human need. Yeah, this one kind of sucks. So I guess that's pretty much everything, right? There's something about this movie just had my mind going in some pretty dark places. And sure, end of the day, this video is probably more telling about my headspace and about the state of the world than it is about Disclosure Day. But there you go. But honestly, I think there's no point to just ranting about gloom. You gotta find that glimmer of hope, or at least a path towards hope. So let's see if we can close on a more positive note, right? Are there any points of light out there? Sure, but I think the points of light are in here. You know, and if my animator wasn't so lazy, he'd show a picture of me tapping on my little skeletal ribcage. It's in our hearts and desires as individuals. You know, people are fed up and it's showing. Things are too expensive, so we're staying away. We're not going to spend $50 at a movie theater for a mediocre movie. And we're not going to drop $100 at a restaurant for a pretty mediocre meal. And we're not paying $200 for a mediocre concert. And we're not going to spend $70 on a mediocre game. You know, we're kind of voting with our wallets. You know, and eventually that message is going to get received. But it's foolish to count on capitalism to solve our little problems. You know, that's a fool's errand. But there are grassroots efforts out there to create more, you know, meaningful and authentic experiences for people. And I think it's important to, you know, look them up and see what's out there. We have the ability to vote with our feet, too. But I know it's not always easy to get our feet to move. But just something to think about. You know, on that note, I am going to wrap things up. Definitely a different video. One of the things about being a teeny tiny channel is I can kind of do what I want and not really worry about the outcome. I call it the freedom of obscurity. I don't know, I'm trying to embrace that spirit in my day-to-day, for whatever it's worth, right? Anyhow, I hope you found this entertaining in some way, and, you know, I hope you're taking good care of yourself. Take care.